I wanted to bring out Dr. Paul McKenzie, who's working with Ethicon, and share his vision on what they're doing around leveraging the unleashing your infrastructure, integrating with the analytics, and the cloud services. So please welcome Paul McKenzie.
Thank you, Martin.
Thank you, Paul.
Good morning, everyone. How are we doing today? Everybody doing well? Great. Well, it's a real privilege to be able to speak with you today about our journey at Johnson & Johnson, where we're at. You'll see both credit for Janssen, which is the pharma side, pharmaceutical side of our business, as well as Ethicon, which is the medical device side of our business. So I'm going to talk to you today about our journey on the lab-to-patient model, really implementing a recipe-based framework to support product lifecycle management. And product lifecycle management has a lot of different definitions in a lot of different industries. I'll share with you ours at Johnson & Johnson. So here's some numbers that I'd like to share. Just some number games. Anybody want to guess what any of these numbers are? How about the zero? Anybody want to guess the zero? Nope, no accidents. Good one, though. We like that. So let me just show you what zero is. So zero, actually interesting, at Johnson & Johnson Pharmaceutical, we have 0 products that are all made internally. There is a product, every product in J&J, one part of it is made externally. I'm not talking about the raw materials, I'm talking about the process itself. So managing that data becomes very difficult, and you'll see later on some of the things we've done to make that simpler. The first one that we've done is really around this idea of a recipe framework. So we've instituted, using S88, which should be very familiar to many people in the audience, the S88 framework for batch, and we've been able to institute that framework for every process across Johnson & Johnson Pharmaceutical, whether it's a biological, chemical, solid dosage, tablet, doesn't matter, we've now done this framework. And what we do there is we have a consistent content, so all parts of the process are described, and all the parameters for that process are described. We then execute in that same framework, and then we're allowed to visualize because of that in that framework. It sounds simple, it's like cooking a cake, but at the end of the day, it gives us a lot of power in terms of what we need to visualize and manage our data across 150 odd plants around the globe, both internally and externally. This helps us also with our regulatory agencies, because what we're able to do is the regulatory filing is actually done in recipe context. Go from step A to step B to step C. And what this allows us to do is easily show our regulatory colleagues where we're at any point in the process around the world, and that we're 100% compliant with what we said we would be in the filing. So tremendous power there. What we've been doing is partnering with a company called NeoPOM, which was a spinoff from Pfizer with Kyle Strain, and OSI to really bring this to life in a new PLM system. And this PLM system basically expresses the product, an end-to-end view of the product. So this is for one of our products. This is all the steps, just an illustration, but all the steps of that process. And we're basically able to show every step along the way, all the parameters, all the critical to quality attributes. And this just shows you a normal process. This is a generic recipe with all the steps for that piece of equipment, and then you can apply that to any plant around the world, and it will tell you whether that equipment will work for that process, and then it will bring it to life with real data when you have the PI historian connected to that plant. And this will just show you, in our world, a lot of it is the critical attributes. We're able to quickly map parameters from process step to anywhere in the world where that parameter is run. We have multiple products that are run in 5 or 6 different locations. We're able now to get to that data real time and show it. So that's just a quick update on NeoPOM and what we're doing. What I'd like to now jump into is what we're doing with PI. So Martin had commented on, what are you guys actually doing? How are you bringing infrastructure alive? How are you bringing your data alive within J&J? And one of the things that's really impressed me, and I really have to compliment a team inside called Spirit, we've been able to bring data to life. We're now in every plant have mobility where people can get it on iPads or on their iPhone. That was really 7 years ago. It was quite challenging to get people to even think about having the data available, let alone now walk around and have the operators have it right in his or her hand. we've been able to really use Pi Cloud Connect. This has been terrific for us. So we have an external partner, Biogen. It's publicly known, where they do our large molecule development and we do their small molecule development. So we're basically sharing capacities and capabilities. Very unique in our industry versus a normal outsource model. But what we're able to do is basically connect real time to Biogen's Pi system using Pi to Pi over the cloud. And likewise, they can do it for us. Now, it hasn't been simple. It hasn't been without its issues from a validation viewpoint, where people are always questioning, well, how do you know? How's the data secure? But really, by partnering with OSI in our enterprise agreement, we've been able to really drive value for both Biogen and Johnson & Johnson. Likewise, we've been able to really bring our infrastructure to life. I will tell you, I was not very popular with our plants. Our plants liked their own server. We want our own Pi server. Well, what if the FDA comes in and we need to have our own server? And the reality in big oil companies like Shell and Exxon, they know you can't scale that way. So we've moved to a regional model where all the plant locations, you see them across consumer, farm, and medical device, are all can access regional servers, and eventually we'd like to bring that up to a cloud-based service, software for a service with OSI. I just keep untwisting Martin's arm, and he gets a little, he runs away from me when I bring it up. But we're really looking forward to really driving this model. This model uses AF. It's completely recipe-based, so not only are we accessing the data, but we're accessing all the process, the analytical information from the laboratories, the SAP information across the board. So one Pi system, what we've been able to do is drive one visualization methodology for every type of unit operation. So if you see a biologic plant, they have the same representation, whether it's in Leiden in the Netherlands, whether it's in Malvern in Pennsylvania. So really, this whole recipe concept is to drive a unique way at looking at products, but standardize that across the board. So this is, again, global interconnected standards visualization. We've now also, for all of our plants, introduced energy monitoring, and that's really provided great advantage for us in terms of managing our costs from an energy viewpoint, but again, completely standardized across the company, in the pharmaceutical side in particular, and waiting to roll out across our other segments, which is very powerful. We also have worked with other partners. Fede is a tablet press. I think they may be in attendance as well. Well, one of the things we really wanted to work with, we have tablet presses all around the world. Fede's one of our standard tablet presses. We wanted to be able to get information from that tablet press consistently across the world. We've been able to partner with Fede and OSIsoft to really drive value. So every Fede that comes in now has the standard package that ties up for our visualization and data needs, which is incredibly important. And this is our general setup. You can just see we use the Pi data for all of our control system and MES data. We then use a data warehouse for our SAP and LIMS data. We have some other local data like in-process control data. And then we feed all that to Spotfire. So basically, we're now able to do real-time analysis. It's been a long way coming, but real-time analysis of our data at every plant across the globe. And most importantly, in today's world, there's a new request by our regulatory agencies for continuous process verification. So we're able now to show that all of our processes are fully compliant around the globe, whether it's an internal or external plant, in terms of how we're looking at and managing the data. We look forward to bring more of our external partners on, like Biogen, into a Pi to Pi Connect situation where we can access data around the globe, whether the plant's in India, whether the plant's in China. We want to be able to access and harness all that data. So one of the things that I'm now moving into medical device, and you'll hear more from Axel on that Pi. He'll do a much better job and really dig down into the details tomorrow. But I moved over to medical device, and one of the things I'm realizing is I spent most of my career at this interface between R&D and manufacturing, making sure that we did technology transfer right, that we could monitor all of our processes correctly. And that's been a long journey. And that's kind of on the digital world, right? On the left-hand side, MES, PLM, ERP, OSIsoft, right? But one of the things there, that's all connected to internally, the manufacturing plant floor or the external plants. What I realize now that I'm in medical device, there's a whole other group of people out there called customers, right? And when we bring out our devices into the customer world, so this is an example of one of our endocutters. This basically works to cut a large artery during a lung operation. If it doesn't work, unfortunately, the patient doesn't survive. So key, right? You want to make sure that you know everything about the patient. You want to make sure you know everything about that device. But in reality, in the marketplace, when we go into the hospitals, these generators that run that machine, these generators are basically standing there not connected to the world. There's approximately 30,000 generators out there. Each of those generators in a given operation can generate thousands of data points, but we're not harnessing that data. Today, we work with a thumb drive, and our sales reps go around and update that software and get no data off of that. So what we'd like to do is really transform that situation. We'd like to get out of long and manual software updates. We'd like to get out of slow functional repairs, right? If we have a problem with the generator, we have to physically send somebody there instead of monitoring in a distance. For those in the power industry, right, this is like having a meter at your house. But what we need to do beyond just knowing how the meter goes, we need to understand the genetics, the comorbidities of the patients. We need to use that as a hub to get more and more information around the patient so we can do a better job predicting how our instrument or device will work in surgery. So there's a huge power to getting this information. And here's what we're hoping to do. We're starting to partner with many companies, OSI being one of them, to really figure out how do we get all of these generators around the world connected, as an example, and how do we have that harness all of the information across all the surgeries around the globe that we do with these tools. And likewise for our competition as well, because the more information we can get in this space, the better it is for the patients that use these devices and the surgeons that use these devices. So that's what we're working on. We're trying to figure out a way, how do you get these local, non-connected devices to really come up to speed? Very similar challenge to what you have in the power industry with the electric meter or gas meter, but very different in some regard because we need to know a lot more about where it's being used, who's it being used on, and what are the characteristics of that patient to be successful.